Above the clouds, where oxygen becomes a luxury and every breath is a battle, 14 mountains pierce through the death zone, each one a frozen sentinel guarding secrets that have claimed hundreds of lives. But here's what most people don't know. These aren't just mountains. They're ranked killers, each with their own deadly signature, their own way of testing human limits. And by the end of this journey, you'll discover which one whispers easy promises, while others scream warnings that echo through the Himalayas. Welcome to the 8000ers, 14 peaks that rise above 8,000 meters, where the air holds less than a third of the oxygen you're breathing right now, where your body begins shutting down, where your mind plays tricks, and where survival becomes a numbers game that would terrify a casino owner. But not all death zones are created equal. Some peaks welcome climbers with deceptive gentleness. Others announce their lethality from the first step. The statistics tell a chilling story. On the deadliest peak, 1 in 3 climbers never return home. That's not a climbing accident. That's a mathematical certainty. Meanwhile, on the safest giant, your odds improve to 1 death for every 75 summits. Still deadly, but the difference between playing Russian roulette with 2 bullets versus 6 chambers loaded. What makes one mountain a stepping stone to glory while another becomes a frozen tomb? The answer lies hidden in ice walls that collapse without warning, in weather systems that can trap you for weeks, in technical challenges that would defeat Olympic athletes. Each peak has developed its own reputation among elite climbers. Some are whispered about in base camps as training grounds. Others are spoken of only in hushed reverence, their names carrying the weight of legendary disasters. Today, we're ranking all 14 from the mountain that offers the highest chance of survival to the peak, that statisticians call the most dangerous place on Earth. But survival isn't just about death rates. It's about cost, accessibility, technical difficulty, and something climbers rarely discuss openly: the psychological warfare these mountains wage against human ambition. Let's begin our ascent with a mountain that doesn't just offer the best odds of survival. It actively welcomes climbers seeking their first 8,000-meter summit. This is where dreams of conquering the death zone begin to take shape. Flying across the Tibetan plateau toward the border with Nepal, a massive pyramid emerges from the endless white landscape. At 8,188 meters, Cho Oyu stands as the 6th highest mountain on Earth. But among the 14 giants, it holds a more important title: the safest killer in the death zone. Cho Oyu means turquoise goddess in Tibetan, and she lives up to her divine nickname by offering mercy where her sisters show none. With over 3,600 successful summits and only 50 recorded deaths, this mountain boasts a fatality rate of just 1.35%. To put that in perspective, you're statistically more likely to die in a car accident driving to the airport than climbing Cho Oyu. But don't mistake low risk for easy climbing. The Northwest Ridge route may lack the technical terror of other peaks, but it demands something else entirely: endurance, mental fortitude, the ability to keep moving when every cell in your body screams for more oxygen. The approach involves weeks of acclimatization, crossing glaciers that could swallow entire expeditions, and climbing through weather that can shift from calm to catastrophic in minutes. What makes Cho Oyu the perfect training ground isn't just its forgiving statistics, it's the deceptive nature of its summit approach. The final push involves navigating across a broad, flat plateau where prayer flags flutter in the thin air. But here's where climbers face their first psychological challenge of the death zone. There's no dramatic summit cairn, no obvious highest point, just an endless expanse of snow where many climbers celebrate prematurely, only to discover they haven't reached the true summit. An expedition here costs between $20,000 and $30,000, making it accessible to serious climbers without requiring the mortgage your house commitment of Everest. The Tibetan side offers reliable logistics, though political restrictions can occasionally slam the door shut on climbing seasons without warning. Yet for those seeking to test themselves against an 8,000er without playing the highest stakes game, Cho Oyu remains the obvious choice. But as we'll discover, even the safest mountain in the death zone has claimed lives in ways that reveal the fundamental truth about high-altitude climbing. At 8,000 meters, there are no guarantees, only calculated risks and the hope that when your turn comes to face the mountain's judgment, you'll be among the fortunate majority who return home with their summit dreams intact. From the gentle slopes of the turquoise goddess, we turn our attention to a peak that shares Everest's base camp but offers something the world's tallest mountain cannot climb, that many consider more technically demanding than its famous neighbour, yet with odds of survival that make it surprisingly attractive to elite mountaineers. Lhotse rises 8,516 metres into the Himalayan sky, making it the fourth tallest mountain on Earth. Its name means South Peak in Tibetan, and it stands so close to Everest that climbers follow the same route through the notorious Khumbu icefall before the paths diverge into entirely different worlds of challenge. With approximately 1,089 successful summits and 22 recorded deaths, Lhotse maintains a fatality rate around 2%. Better odds than many of its neighbours, but achieved through a climb that demands precision where Everest relies on perseverance. The route splits from Everest's path at the Yellow Band, where climbers face a choice. Turn left toward the crowded South Col and the traffic jams of Everest's summit ridge, or turn right toward Lhotse's knife edge finale. Those who choose Lhotse face what many consider the most technically challenging final approach of any 8,000er. The summit pyramid involves steep ice climbing, exposed ridge walking, and route finding that would challenge professional guides. Unlike Everest's well-established path marked by fixed ropes and the footsteps of thousands, Lhotse demands independent decision-making in an environment where mistakes become fatal. The psychological challenge here isn't just altitude, it's the constant comparison to Everest. Climbers arrive at base camp watching teams prepare for the world's most famous summit, while they gear up for a mountain that receives a fraction of the attention despite offering a superior climbing experience. This creates a unique mental dynamic. Less external pressure, but more internal questioning about whether they've chosen the right peak for their 8,000-meter debut. Financially, Lhotse offers better value than its famous neighbour. Expeditions typically cost $25,000 to $35,000, significantly less than Everest's premium pricing. The shared logistics with Everest Base Camp mean reliable support, medical facilities, and helicopter evacuation possibilities that many other 8,000ers cannot offer. Yet Lhotse's proximity to Everest creates its own dangers. The Khumbu icefall, which both mountains share, remains one of the most objectively hazardous sections of any climbing route in the world. Massive seracs hang overhead like frozen guillotines, crevasses open without warning, and the entire glacier moves continuously, reshaping the route daily teams must navigate this maze of ice multiple times during acclimatization rotations, multiplying their exposure to catastrophic collapse. But for climbers who survive the shared approach, Lhotse offers something Everest cannot. A summit that feels earned through technical skill rather than endurance and expeditions logistics. A peak that whispers rather than shouts, but whose whispers carry the weight of authentic mountaineering achievement. As we continue our ranking, the mountains ahead grow more demanding, more dangerous, and more selective about who they allow to return home. The next peak on our list introduces us to a mountain that has earned a reputation as the perfect training ground for Everest, but whose avalanche-prone slopes tell a different story about the price of preparation. Deep in the heart of Nepal's Gorkha district, where ancient trade routes wind through valleys that have witnessed centuries of human ambition, stands a mountain that has become synonymous with preparation for the ultimate prize. At 8,163 meters, Manaslu translates to Mountain of the Spirit, and spirits here seem to have a twisted sense of humor. With over 650 successful summits and approximately 80 recorded deaths, Manaslu maintains a fatality rate around 12%. Not the worst odds we'll encounter, but certainly a significant step up from our previous peaks. What makes these statistics particularly sobering is Manaslu's reputation as the ideal training mountain for Everest aspirants. Climbers arrive here believing they're taking a safer path to 8,000-meter experience. The mountain has other plans. The northeast route appears deceptively straightforward from satellite images. Long snow slopes, manageable technical sections, and a gradual approach that seems to offer multiple escape routes. But Manaslu's true character reveals itself through what climbers call the Manaslu Serac, a massive ice formation that hangs over the standard route like a frozen sword of Damocles. This isn't just an obstacle to navigate, it's a psychological test that separates mountaineers from mountain tourists. The Serac shifts constantly, groaning and cracking through the night as climbers lie in their tents, calculating odds. Some expeditions spend weeks waiting for the ice to stabilize, only to watch it collapse during what should have been their summit window. Others push through during unstable periods and discover why Manaslu has earned its deadly reputation, despite being marketed as a training peak. But the Serac isn't Manaslu's only weapon. The mountain sits directly in the monsoon belt, creating weather patterns that can trap climbers for weeks. What begins as a routine acclimatization rotation can become a fight for survival when storms roll in without warning. Teams have been forced to abandon camps, equipment, and sometimes members who couldn't keep pace during emergency descents. Expeditions here cost between $24,000 and $30,000, positioning Manaslu as an expensive lesson in humility. The approach trek through the Manaslu Conservation Area offers stunning cultural experiences, passing through villages where climbing isn't just a sport but an economic lifeline. Yet this beauty masks the mountain's fundamental challenge. Unlike technical peaks that announce their difficulty, Manaslu lulls climbers into overconfidence before revealing its true nature. The psychological warfare here is subtle but devastating. Climbers arrive expecting a stepping stone and encounter a mountain that demands the same respect as any other 8,000er. The result is often poor decision-making, inadequate preparation, and a casualty rate that reflects the gap between expectation and reality. From Nepal's monsoon-influenced ranges, we cross into Pakistan's Karakoram, where an entirely different style of mountain warfare awaits. Here, the landscape transforms from the rounded snow peaks of the Himalayas to jagged granite spires that seem designed by a malevolent architect. And rising from this chaos of rock and ice stands a mountain that offers the best financial value in the death zone, but extracts payment in ways that accountants never calculate. Gasherbrum 2 pierces the sky at 8,035 meters, making it the 13th highest mountain on Earth and the cheapest 8,000er to attempt. With approximately 930 summits and around 30 recorded deaths, its fatality rate hovers near 3%. These numbers make it attractive to budget-conscious climbers seeking their first 8,000-meter peak, but the Karakoram teaches expensive lessons to those who mistake affordability for safety. Expeditions here cost between $12,000 and $18,000, making Gasherbrum II the most accessible giant in terms of pure economics. Pakistani permits and logistics come at a fraction of Nepal's prices, and the shared base camp with other Karakoram peaks allows for cost-splitting opportunities that can reduce individual expedition expenses even further. But the Karakoram's reputation for unpredictable weather turns every cost saving into a potential death sentence. Storms here don't follow monsoon patterns or seasonal predictions. They arrive like avalanches, sudden and overwhelming, trapping climbers for days or weeks without warning. The lower expedition costs mean less comprehensive safety equipment, smaller support teams, and reduced evacuation capabilities when conditions deteriorate. The route itself follows wide snow slopes that appear straightforward compared to technical giants like K2 or the steep faces we'll encounter later. But appearances in the Karakoram are always deceptive. The glacier approach involves navigating through crevasse fields that can swallow entire teams, and the upper mountain exposes climbers to rockfall from neighbouring peaks that tower overhead like frozen artillery. The altitude now makes every heartbeat echo in your ears like a drum. We've climbed from the deceptive mercy of Cho Oyu through the technical challenges of Lhotse, survived the psychological warfare of Manaslu, and felt the economic seduction of Gasherbrum too. But ahead lies terrain where mathematics become meaningless and survival transforms into something closer to luck. Broad Peak stretches across the horizon at 8,051 metres, its name describing the massive summit ridge that extends for nearly 2 kilometres. With 445 successful summits and approximately 40 deaths, the fatality rate climbs to 9%. But these numbers don't capture what makes Broad Peak uniquely exhausting. This isn't a mountain you conquer through technical brilliance or financial resources. It's a mountain that tests whether you can keep moving when your body has already quit. The approach follows the Baltoro Glacier, a frozen highway that leads deeper into the Karakoram's heart. Expeditions cost between $13,000 and $20,000, maintaining the region's reputation for affordable access to deadly objectives. But affordability here comes with hidden costs that reveal themselves only after you've committed to the climb. The route isn't technically demanding compared to what's coming, but it's relentlessly long. After establishing base camp, climbers face a grinding ascent that seems to stretch forever. The summit ridge extends so far that reaching the highest point becomes a test of navigation, as much as endurance teams have been known to celebrate on subsidiary summits, believing they've reached the top, only to discover the true summit still lies hours ahead. But Broad Peak's real psychological challenge isn't distance, it's the view. From the summit ridge you can see K2 looming nearby, its pyramid shape unmistakable and terrifying. Climbers stand on one of the world's highest points while staring at a mountain that makes their achievements seem like preparation for the real test. It's a perspective that has driven some to attempt K2 immediately after Broad Peak, often with fatal results. The weather patterns here follow Karakoram rules, which means no rules at all. Storms can pin down expeditions for weeks, turning what should be a straightforward climb into a survival ordeal. The extended summit ridge offers no shelter from wind that can exceed 100 kilometers per hour, creating conditions where even experienced climbers become disoriented and lost. From Broad Peak's endless ridge, we descend into valleys where the air grows thinner and the stakes higher. The mountains ahead have earned their reputations through decades of tragedy, technological disasters, and weather patterns that seem designed to test human limits. Our next destination introduces us to a peak where the approach alone has claimed more lives than some 8,000ers see in their entire climbing history. Dhaulagiri rises 8,167 meters above Nepal's western ranges, its name meaning White Mountain in Sanskrit. With over 500 successful summits and around 70 recorded deaths, the fatality rate reaches approximately 13%. But these statistics mask what makes Dhaulagiri uniquely dangerous. This is a mountain where the approach kills you before the summit gets its chance. The trek to Dhaulagiri base camp crosses some of the most remote and avalanche-prone terrain in the Himalayas. Unlike Everest or Manaslu, where helicopter evacuations remain possible, Dhaulagiri's isolation means that once you commit to the approach, you're completely on your own. Teams have been wiped out by avalanches before ever seeing the mountain they came to climb. Expeditions here cost between $25,000 and $35,000, but the real price is paid in psychological preparation for complete self-reliance. There are no Sherpa services, no fixed camps, no rescue helicopters standing by. Just you, your team, and a mountain that changes its mood faster than weather forecasters can predict. The standard route appears straightforward, following the northeast ridge through a series of camps that look manageable on paper. But Dhaulagiri sits in a unique geographical position where weather systems collide with devastating results. Storms here don't just bring snow and wind. They bring complete whiteout conditions that can last for weeks, trapping climbers in positions where retreat becomes impossible. The summit push involves navigating through what climbers call the ice cliff, a vertical wall of unstable seracs that have collapsed without warning, taking entire expeditions with them. The route finding through this maze requires perfect timing, ideal conditions, and something that no amount of training can provide: luck. But Dhaulagiri's most insidious weapon is its beauty. The mountain presents such stunning views during clear weather that climbers often push beyond their planned turnaround times, seduced by perfect summit conditions. When the weather inevitably changes, they find themselves trapped high on the mountain with no margin for error and no possibility of rescue. We're now entering altitude where the margin between life and death narrows to the width of a single decision. The peaks ahead have earned their reputations not just through high fatality rates, but through the nature of those deaths. These are mountains where experienced climbers disappear without explanation, where perfect weather can turn lethal in minutes, and where technical skill becomes secondary to pure survival instinct. Makalu stands 8,481 meters tall, making it the world's 5th highest peak. Located in the shadow of Everest, it has remained relatively obscure despite offering what many consider the most technically challenging climb of any 8,000er. With approximately 800 summits and 50 deaths, the fatality rate reaches about 6%, but these numbers don't reflect what makes Makalu truly terrifying. This mountain is famous for its knife-edge ridges and steep pitches that would challenge professional guides on much smaller peaks. The final summit pyramid involves technical rock climbing at altitudes where most people can barely walk. It's a combination that has attracted elite climbers seeking the ultimate technical challenge and eliminated those who underestimated what technical climbing means in the death zone. Expeditions cost between $25,000 and $35,000, but the real investment is in technical skill development that takes years to acquire. This isn't a mountain where fitness and determination can compensate for climbing ability. Every move on the upper mountain requires precise technique executed, while your brain operates on a third of its normal oxygen supply. The approach follows a remote valley where teams often spend weeks in complete isolation. Unlike mountains with established infrastructure, Makalu expeditions must be completely self-sufficient. When accidents happen, and they do happen regularly, evacuation becomes a complex operation that can take days to organise and execute. But Makalu's reputation among elite climbers goes beyond technical difficulty. This is a mountain that seems to actively resist human presence. Weather windows that appear perfect can close within hours, trapping climbers on exposed ridges with no possibility of retreat. The rock quality on the upper mountain is notoriously poor, with holds breaking away under the weight of climbers who have invested everything in reaching this point. The psychological challenge here is unique among 8,000ers. Most peaks test endurance, weather resistance, or risk management. Makalu tests whether you can execute perfect technical climbing while your body and mind operate at the edge of human capability. It's a test that has humbled some of mountaineering's greatest names and attracted others precisely because of its reputation for destroying egos. From Makalu's technical nightmare, we ascend into rarefied air where only the most experienced mountaineers dare to venture. The peaks ahead have fatality rates that would shut down any other recreational activity, but continue to attract climbers precisely because of their deadly reputations. Our next destination is a mountain where the name itself has become synonymous with high-altitude tragedy. Kangchenjunga rises 8,586 meters above the border between Nepal and India, making it the 3rd highest mountain on Earth. Its name means 5 treasures of snow, referring to the 5 peaks that make up its massive ridge system. With fewer than 500 successful summits and over 85 recorded deaths, the fatality rate approaches 18%. But statistics cannot capture what makes this mountain uniquely terrifying. Kangchenjunga sits in complete isolation, removed from the climbing infrastructure that supports other major peaks. The approach involves weeks of trekking through regions where Western climbers are rarely seen and local support is limited. This remoteness creates a psychological pressure that begins long before the technical climbing starts. The mountain's position creates weather patterns that are unpredictable, even by Himalayan standards. Storms can develop from clear skies in a matter of hours, and the multiple peak system creates wind patterns that can vary dramatically across different sections of the same route. Teams have been trapped for weeks in conditions that would be survivable for days, but become fatal through extended exposure. Expeditions here cost around $25,000 to $35,000, but the real cost is paid in preparation time and psychological readiness for complete self-reliance. There are no rescue services, no evacuation options, and no margin for error. When things go wrong on Kangchenjunga, they go wrong in ways that test whether you've truly prepared for the consequences of high-altitude mountaineering. The technical challenges involve steep ice climbing, exposed ridge traversing, and route finding through terrain that changes significantly between expeditions. But the mountain's most dangerous characteristic is its ability to appear deceptively manageable during perfect conditions, only to reveal its true nature when weather deteriorates. Many teams have reached high camps in excellent weather, only to find themselves fighting for survival when conditions change. The multiple summit system means that navigation becomes crucial at altitudes where cognitive function is severely impaired. Teams have been known to become lost on their own mountain, wandering through whiteout conditions until exhaustion or exposure claims them. But Kangchenjunga's deadliest weapon may be its beauty. The mountain offers some of the most spectacular views in the Himalayas, and climbers often push beyond safe limits to experience summit conditions that may not occur again for years. When the weather inevitably changes, they find themselves committed to routes they cannot retreat from, at altitudes where survival becomes measured in hours rather than days. We're now approaching the final tier of 8,000ers, where fatality rates exceed 20%, and the very act of attempting these peaks becomes a statement about your relationship with mortality. The mountains ahead have earned their reputations through legendary disasters, weather patterns that defy prediction, and technical challenges that push human capabilities beyond their breaking points. Nanga Parbat stands 8,126 meters tall in Pakistan's western ranges, earning the nickname Killer Mountain through decades of tragedy that began with the very first expeditions. With approximately 450 successful summits and over 85 deaths, the fatality rate approaches 20%. But these numbers only begin to tell the story of why this mountain has become synonymous with high-altitude death. The Rupal face of Nanga Parbat presents one of the largest vertical walls on Earth, rising more than 4,000 meters from base to summit in a single, unbroken face of rock and ice. Even the standard route, which avoids the worst of this technical nightmare, involves constant exposure to avalanches, rockfall, and weather systems that can trap climbers for weeks. Expeditions cost between $20,000 and $30,000, making it relatively accessible compared to some peaks, but accessibility here becomes a trap. The lower costs attract climbers who may not have the experience or resources to handle what Nanga Parbat delivers. The mountain has a history of eliminating entire expeditions, earning its killer reputation through systematic destruction of climbing teams. The approach involves crossing some of Pakistan's most remote terrain, where political instability can create security concerns that compound the natural dangers. Teams have been forced to abandon expeditions due to regional conflicts, losing months of preparation and significant financial investments. But Nanga Parbat's most terrifying characteristic is its unpredictability. This is a mountain where perfect weather can turn lethal within hours, where established camps can be destroyed by avalanches that seem to come from nowhere, and where experienced climbers simply disappear without explanation. The psychological pressure of climbing a mountain, nicknamed for its ability to kill, creates a mental dynamic that can impair decision-making when precision becomes crucial for survival. The summit push involves navigating through terrain where every step could trigger catastrophic consequences. The upper mountain is notorious for loose rock that can bring down entire sections of cliff face, and the weather patterns create conditions where retreat often becomes more dangerous than continuing upward. From Pakistan's Killer Mountain, we cross into the heart of the Karakoram, where the landscape transforms into something that seems designed by forces hostile to human life. Here stands a mountain that has become the ultimate test of high-altitude mountaineering skill, a peak whose very name evokes respect and terror among the world's elite climbers. K2 rises 8,611 meters into the thin air above the Baltoro Glacier, earning its position as the world's second highest mountain and its reputation as the most dangerous. With approximately 800 successful summits and over 135 recorded deaths, the fatality rate exceeds 26%. But these statistics cannot convey what makes K2 the mountain that defines the absolute limits of human mountaineering capability. Every route on K2 involves technical challenges that would be considered extreme at sea level, executed at altitudes where the human body begins shutting down the bottleneck. A narrow corridor beneath hanging glaciers has become synonymous with high-altitude death. This single section of the route has claimed more lives than entire expeditions on other mountains, yet it remains unavoidable on every path to the summit. Expeditions here cost between $30,000 and $45,000, but money cannot buy safety on K2. The mountain has eliminated elite climbers with decades of experience, perfect equipment, and unlimited budgets. It has destroyed entire expeditions in single storms and created legendary disasters that have redefined what mountaineers consider possible risks. The weather on K2 follows no predictable patterns. Storms can develop from clear skies in minutes, creating winds that exceed 100 kilometers per hour and visibility that drops to zero. The mountain's pyramid shape channels these winds into patterns that can knock climbers off established routes, and the technical terrain offers no shelter from conditions that would be survivable on easier peaks. But K2's most terrifying aspect is its complete lack of margin for error. Every decision on this mountain carries fatal consequences. Route-finding mistakes that might cause delays on other peaks become death sentences here. Equipment failures that would be inconvenient elsewhere become catastrophic. Weather miscalculations that might force retreats on other mountains trap climbers in positions where survival becomes impossible. The psychological pressure of climbing K2 begins long before the technical challenges. This is a mountain where legendary climbers have died, where perfect conditions can turn lethal without warning, and where the very act of attempting the summit becomes a statement about your acceptance of death as a probable outcome. And yet, this brings us to our final destination, a mountain that exceeds even K2's deadly reputation, where the fatality rate approaches mathematical certainty, and the very statistics seem designed to discourage all but the most determined or desperate climbers. At the end of our deadly ranking stands Annapurna the Fun, rising 8,091 meters above Nepal's western ranges. With approximately 365 successful summits and over 110 recorded deaths, the fatality rate has reached 30%. This isn't just the deadliest 8,000er. According to statisticians, it's the most dangerous mountain on Earth. The numbers are staggering, but they cannot convey the reality of climbing a mountain where 1 in 3 climbers never return home. This isn't a climbing accident. It's a mathematical probability that approaches certainty. Yet expeditions continue to arrive, drawn by the challenge of confronting the ultimate test of high-altitude mountaineering. Annapurna's south face presents one of the most avalanche-prone slopes in mountaineering, where seracs collapse without warning and entire expeditions vanish in seconds. The mountain's position in the monsoon belt creates weather patterns that can trap climbers for weeks, turning what should be summit attempts into survival ordeals. Expeditions cost between $28,000 and $40,000, but the real price is measured in lives rather than currency. This is a mountain that has redefined what mountaineers consider acceptable risk, where the act of attempting the summit becomes a philosophical statement about the value of human experience versus human life. The technical challenges involve navigating through terrain where every step could trigger catastrophic avalanches, where route finding requires perfect timing and ideal conditions, and where the margin between success and death disappears entirely. Even elite mountaineers approach Annapurna with caution that borders on reverence, knowing that skill and experience provide no guarantee of survival. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Annapurna is how it attracts climbers, precisely because of its deadly reputation. This is a mountain where the challenge isn't just reaching the summit. It's proving that you can gamble with death and win. For some climbers, the 30% fatality rate isn't a deterrent. It's the very reason they come. So here we stand at the end of our journey through the death zone, having climbed from Cho Oyu's deceptive mercy to Annapurna's mathematical certainty of death. 14 mountains that reveal the entire spectrum of high-altitude risk, from training peaks that merely threaten to kill you to summits where death becomes a statistical probability. But perhaps the most chilling realization isn't about the mountains themselves. It's about what drives human beings to attempt them despite odds that would be considered insane in any other context. These peaks don't just test physical capability or technical skill. They reveal something fundamental about human nature, something that compels us to seek challenges where failure means death and success means nothing more than the opportunity to face an even deadlier challenge. The 14 8,000ers stand as frozen monuments to human ambition, each one a different lesson in mortality disguised as a climbing objective. From the gentlest killer to the deadliest certainty, they wait in the thin air above 8,000 meters, patient and eternal, ready to test whether your dreams are worth dying for. If these stories of altitude, ambition and mortality have drawn you into the deadly world above the clouds, hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into places where human limits meet their breaking points. Your exploration of Earth's most extreme destinations is just beginning.